everyone. Welcome back to Purple Nuna Podcast, a podcast that is currently E. coli free. Yes, you heard that here first. I am here today with the lovely and the incomparable Savanna Lanausse.
That's my name from now on, everybody.
That's how I say it in my head when I spell it. Like, it's like, like when I'm doing like biology notes, I don't say, when I'm spelling it out, I don't say mitochondria. I say mitochondria because that's how it should be said.
I guess
Just
that makes
like
sense.
Lanausse, because they sneak a little H in there. So just like Lanausse should really be Lanausse.
You know,
You want to make it a
that's
little bit
not
more
wrong.
like Lanausse sounds great. Don't get me wrong. But if you add a little feng shui onto Lanausse, it's Lanausse. And come on.
It's supposed to be French, but I don't believe it. Paul says the only time it's French. I'm like, yeah, right, okay.
Well, he's not French.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You can't take credit
but
for
I
that.
mean, like, that would be like me going, well, Stephanie's French, so you should just be calling me Estefanie, the entire time. But how are you? How are you doing?
I'm in a cheerful mood. It's a good night.
Good. Yeah. I started this show saying we're E. coli free because one, Savanna, I mean, fun fact about little bit about your body. You're always gonna have E. coli on you, but you're not gonna be infected like how I was 2 weeks ago. There was a little bit of changes in our schedule. I don't think you guys really noticed it because we still put out content, but it might have been a little bit different or tiny bit inconsistent. I think it's like the one time I was really like gone and out for 2 weeks and we were still entirely consistent. So probably no one knows. But yeah, cook your meats. If it look weird, don't eat it. I regret it. Yep. I had a fever for like 10 days and no bueno. Wasn't COVID. I got tested. It was E. coli. So cook your meats, wash your hands, just because I feel like people like, like remember when Chipotle gave out E. coli?
Oh God.
Do you remember that where it was like, oh my God, all of the romaine lettuce, all of the romaine lettuce has E. coli. And then remember there was like that one time a few years ago where you couldn't buy romaine lettuce for like 2 months?
Yeah, what happened to that? Is that safe now?
There was E. coli within the lettuce and they couldn't trace it.
I feel like that's why I don't buy romaine lettuce. I think that's what happened. Because I know when I go to the grocery store, I'm like, oh, you have to buy the good lettuce. And romaine is never my pick. So maybe that's what it is.
But you know what I will say? I'm like, not to be very cynical, but I hope all of a sudden I hear on the news, there's an E. coli outbreak within romaine lettuce because I'm going to make bank. I got stuff documented. I ate lettuce before I got sick.
Cash your check, Steph. Get your check.
I'm going to get bank. I'm going to get it. And I'm going to buy a house. No, I'm going to complete my Criterion Collection.
That's the smart thing to do. Of course. There's always going to be houses. Whatever.
Of course. Homes, they ain't going anywhere, but Criterions are flying off the shelves. Because that's where our priorities are.
And of course, the first one you have to get, right?
I'm thinking, oh, you bet I am going for that. The World of Wong Kar-wai box set. I'm going for all the box sets. Like, and I'm going through the Criterion, like their collection, like the website. Cause I think they do like with like every like $100 purchase or something like that. With every like big purchase, I remember they used to do it. I don't buy it too often from them. But I think like after a certain amount, you get like a coupon. I'm going to be stacked on stacked on stacked for the next Criterion sale. They're going to be like, this girl's robbing us. And I'll be like, yeah, I am. That's knocking at your door. I'm here with E. coli. Just as a threat. But before we get into today's movie, this past weekend, so we're filming this on a Monday, yesterday was the Golden Globes. Savanna, what do we think? What do we think about winners? Fair and just?
Yes. To be honest, I don't know everybody, but from what I heard and from what I know, It was good. I'm really happy that I don't know if you watch Ted Lasso. Do you watch Ted Lasso?
I don't watch Ted Lasso.
I
Not
really
because
like
I
Ted
just don't
Lasso.
have anything against it, but is it really good?
I think it's funny. It's like me and you like British humor. So I think you would like it. And I really like Jason Sudeikis, and I feel like he needed this after the
Well, I
Harry
was about to say,
Styles
you're
thing.
saying British humor, but is he's not British.
So it's about a football coach from the United States. He gets a job as a soccer, well, football in England coach in the UK, and it's about how he. It's
Oh.
really funny. It's like lighthearted. It's like sweet, and I really feel like he needed this after the Harry Styles thing.
Well, it's okay because she moved back in with him. I mean, he
What?
won the Golden Globe. Yeah, she was like, "All right, valid." So
What?
she moved back in with Jason Sudeikis. I think she moved in like 3 days before the Golden Globes, but I mean, come on, she probably had a hunch that he was gonna win and was like, "Harry don't have a Golden Globe."
That is the craziest thing.
I mean, I'm sure she's not that self-absorbed to be like, "I'm only gonna go with the man with the Golden Globe," you know. But no one's saying otherwise.
Wow. Okay, that's news to me. News to me.
Yeah. And then we also had with the Golden Globes. I loved everything. I love Tina and Amy Poehler. They were great. They're always my favorite host. Honestly, they just did such a killer job. Um, I was really happy with all the nominations and the wins for Nomadland because I'm like, yes, break the barriers. Keep. Well, I'm also always salty when I see that because I'm like, that could have been me. Like, you know, like if it's like, oh my God, the second female to ever win. And I'm like, that could have been me. Don't worry. Cause probably when I hit the scenes of the award shows, when I hit the red carpet, I'm probably gonna go for the categories that like no one wants to go for and just dominate. I'm coming for you, short films. I'm gonna have a streak. Everyone's gonna be like, this kid again? And I'll be like,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, short films. What's up? Why does no one do that? Like, I want a monopoly on the short film genre.
You know what it is? Because I feel like people like see it and they're just like, oh, but nobody watches short films, you know? So I feel like it's
Yeah.
probably that. Um, but that's just my guess. I don't actually know.
Yeah. In terms of, oh, I mean, like, I was really happy. Like, the last thing I'm gonna say, my last comment was it was so bittersweet with the whole Chadwick Boseman winning because I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
yes, yes, but I didn't need to cry that hard on a Sunday night. You know what I mean?
Didn't his wife accept it?
Yeah, and I was crying the entire time. Like, as soon as she came on, it was like, thank you. I was like, like, just trying to compose myself. It
Mm,
was just painful. Very painful, very deserving, very beautiful, very loving, but oh so painful.
yeah, yeah.
Like, if you watch any of the highlights and stuff, because we were talking during the award show, don't watch that unless you want to cry. Like, that's like the type of thing where you're like, I'm feeling blue. I need to let my tears out. You click that and just sob.
Yeah, yeah. Very
Hmm.
emotional.
But the movie that we're going to be talking about today actually ended up winning the Golden Globe for Best Foreign Language Picture, which is
Woo!
great. We ended up seeing this movie. It was a really cool experience. They actually did a virtual screening about 2 weeks ago, right?
Yes.
Where we saw it through A24, and they even had like a little Q&A, like a little pre-recorded Q&A after the movie. And I thought that was so cool. Um, Definitely highly recommend checking out and watching out for the A24 movies because I definitely do think it was totally worth it, especially if you have like a smart TV or an Apple TV where you can just stream the movie to. So yeah, if you want to look for new movies, but you want to stay in the comfort of your own home, check and see if A24 is going to be doing that in your neck of the woods because that was really, really great. But yeah, do you have any comments or concerns or things that you want to talk about with the Golden Globes?
No, I spoke my piece. Ted Lasso won. So I'm pretty content with just
Ted
that.
Lasso and Schitt's Creek, you know? What more
Yeah,
could you want, you know?
exactly.
All right, so then let's get into the film Minari. Minari is a film written and directed by Isaac Chung, and it is about a Korean family starts a farm in 1980s Arkansas. Um, it is currently right now available in theaters, as well as they might be doing more showings through the A24 website, so definitely check that out. But the main cast is Alan S. Kim, Yeri Han, Noel Cho, and Steven Yin. Um, so before we get into, as always, the spoilerly bits and all that stuff, Savannah, what did you think about Minari?
I thought it was very unique. Um, I didn't expect that kind of story. The story is about like I would say I was going into it like, oh, the American dream. And I thought we were gonna get like just, one of the stories about, oh, upcoming people that come to America to do the American dream.
Maybe involving some more race relations and things like that.
When really it's just like a story within a story.
Hmm.
Because it really focused more on the family and their hardships rather than like this whole grand scheme topics. Because I think with the topic of the American dream, it the movie kind of emulates just that topic. You know what I mean? Like at the
Yeah.
end of those movies, you're just like, oh yeah, like that movie was about that they got the American dream and look all these things about the American dream when really like this is a family that just wanted better for themselves. And we actually rarely kind of see those aspirations. We see it a little bit within the father, and we'll get into that later. But it was really just more about how this family is surviving
Hmm.
with many things. It had many topics about marriage, about kids, culture, and family. So I really like that it just didn't put itself in a box because I think that's where a lot of movies make the mistake and become rather like cookie cutter. You can kind of see it coming. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and the acting was fantastic, very emotional, um, and just very realistic. You could kind of feel everything that was going on. Um, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I it kind of have you seen The Farewell?
No, but I know what it's about, and I can kind of see how you could like kind of relate it to that.
It reminds me of The Farewell and The Florida Project, where
Definitely the Florida Project.
yeah, it's just like these stories within like a bigger issue. Like the Project was talking about poverty in Orlando, but we really didn't see that overall like topic. It's just about this, this girl just trying to survive in Orlando. The Farewell was about the family trying to protect their sick grandma, and you kind of just see the dynamic. So I feel like it's those two movies combined, and I really, really enjoyed it. What did you think?
I completely agree. And you know what? I have to give a shout out to whoever cut the trailer because the best thing you can do in a trailer is mislead really because I like
Mm,
obviously like sometimes that can work both good and bad ways depending, but I would rather be surprised with what I am getting in a movie than completely know what's about to happen just from the trailer.
yeah, that happens a
Cuz
lot.
I really enjoyed like knowing, like thinking that going into it one way, it was going to be about this. And obviously, like it hit that topic, but it was so much more.
Yes.
As Savannah was saying, like the American dream is kind of like the umbrella, but everything else, like the water, the wind, everything else in this like little picture, all kind of comes together within the characters and things like that. I think, and also one of my favorite characters was a character that was kind of hidden from the trailer and kind of hidden from the main idea of the plot, which would be the grandmother. But I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I think Minari is a very good film. It wasn't what I was expecting, but I say that in the best way possible. I was very satisfied watching this movie. I would, despite it being about hardships and stuff, I would consider it more as like a feel good movie, although that could
Yeah.
be debatable to some degree, with just some events that happened. But I did like the movie. I thought it was good timing. It's a 2 hour movie. I felt like it had good pacing. And I really love the interconnectedness of all the different characters. Like, I loved how not everyone had the same struggle within the movie.
Right.
Everyone, whether going from the wife to the husband to the two children to the grandmother, all those things, and even to their own environment, seeing the different aspects, seeing all the different things that they faced. I think it was honestly, like, in terms of like a family drama and like a family centered movie, this is like the epitome of that. And of course, there could be some that are more dramatic, more harder, more this, but in terms of like the interconnectedness and everyone having their own issues to deal with, this is what movies centered around families should be. So I definitely recommend it. So let's go into the story. So Savannah, like we were talking about, we were kind of expecting it one way. Within all the different stories between mother, child, father, things like that, what were some of your favorite elements of the story within this movie?
I really liked what the wife was kind of going through throughout the whole
Hmm.
movie. And you kind of felt her struggle because she was really alone.
Hmm.
Her husband was just had this, this goal and this vision that he was working so hard for. And she was just kind of left by herself in a foreign country where she doesn't know anybody. And you like feel that, I don't know if pain is the right word, but you feel like that isolation within her.
Yeah.
And you're kind of just like, well, like, even when I think the husband is a very complex character, but
Hmm.
I think the wife matches that energy in a sense where he's trying to build something for the family and she's trying to just keep the family together. Until she can't anymore, until like she's just tired. So I really felt her struggle the most out of the whole family,
Hmm.
or felt
Yeah,
for
and
her.
I think what was really great was how you can really see without them having to say like I feel bad or I feel
Yeah.
lonely or I feel this way. You could just see it within these characters, within the way the actors portray themselves and like not saying it directly but like saying it indirectly through dialogue. I think they did a great job. And one of the things that I really liked was how you could see this wife, Stephen Yeun's character's wife, um really carry this sense of guilt because they lived in San Francisco and they ended up having to move to Arkansas because at the time, San Francisco, a lot of people migrated from Asia to the West Coast of the US. And you can tell she feels very guilty and she feels responsible for her husband's new, fuel, this new dream that he wants to take on. Because the reason why they moved to Arkansas was that because he could work and he was the best at his job, but she couldn't keep up. She couldn't get a job, and therefore both of them together would not be able to support the family.
Hmm.
So I love how you can see that in moments, especially like when there's just moments where she's looking at him and just seeing him do his thing. Especially towards even the end of the film when he tries to bring the vegetables and stuff like that to a local Korean market. And you could just kind of see like that, like I'm angry, but I also might have brought this onto us. Like maybe I'm the reason, like I created this situation. I really like all these characters really have a very nice special complexity to them. Even the children, you know?
Right.
And I think that just adds so much to the story. And personally, my favorite segue or my favorite path of characters that I really loved that I wasn't expecting was the relationship between the son and the grandmother.
Grandma.
I loved because it really showed a a kind of struggle that like many people, especially growing up in the US, wouldn't face. Like, I've never had to consider, like, I've always thought, like, oh, maybe my grandparents are a little weird and stuff, but I've never thought of them to not be normal to the, like, American standard. Even, like, my, grandmother who's from Puerto Rico and, things like that, from Spain and all things like that. I never really felt that or never really saw that as a kid. So to see this little boy say like, "You're not a grandma," to like this woman because she's making fun of him for peeing in the bed and because she doesn't know how to make chocolate chip cookies. And I really love how they made this grandma character play it off like you're just silly.
Yeah,
Like, oh, I'm
yeah.
not a real, like, it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so disheartened. She was like, yeah, I'm your grandmother, and what are you going to do about it? Like, I really love the grandmother character. I think she was such a great, surprising addition to this movie. What did you, do you feel the same way about the grandmother?
I did, and I felt like the grandma played a really big role in like the family dynamic because she played like this bridge character between what they're going through now, and she would often bring up their life in Korea.
Mhm.
But she was also like this little like a positive light in their family. Like she
Yeah.
wouldn't really talk about like there was one point where like I don't remember if they didn't have water. No, it was that they didn't have water. And she didn't say anything. You know, she wasn't like, "Oh, you guys should have just never came here." She's like, "No, we're gonna go to the creek, get some water." She was just this positive little light that brought a lot of like positivity to the family until again she couldn't. So I really liked her character because it did bring joy to the house in a way that wasn't
Yeah,
there
and
before
it
her.
really also emphasized, like, sadly, how, I'm gonna use the word isolated the parents
Yeah,
had become from their kids to a certain point. Like, especially, like,
right,
you saw the dad go from, "I'm the role of the father," to just kind of, at some point in the end, go, "I'm only the enforcer when rules are broken." Same with even, like, the mother. Like, they, instead of being parents in the end, they kinda conform to just, like, bad behavior correctors. And the grandmother ended up having the strongest influence, during the height of the movie onto this kid. Um, and I think it was just, and I also really liked the juxtaposition between the daughter who had, um, grew up in Korea, the young daughter who had grew up in Korea, kind of already had seen the lifestyle and accommodated to the American style, and then you have the young brother who has no recollect, like, he wasn't born in Korea, he was born in the U.S., and
right.
he is completely, like, Americanized compared to all of them. So
Hmm.
I really liked those differences too. um and it just, and like, even like, the even though it was sad, like, adding the fact that the grandmother had a stroke and stuff really just kind of highlighted how, the little boy, David, how he ended up feeling for his grandmother in the end, and kind of like the transformation he went from being like, "Stay away from me, I'm not going to talk to you," to trying to help her when she was not feeling well.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely.
Now, let's highlight specifically on the acting. So, out of all the actors, who do you think brought, like, the heat in terms of performance? Do you think all of them did equally, or did you think some stand out more against the others?
I have to say, A24 has a knack for finding these great child actors.
Yeah.
They have some kind of gift because I thought the little boy was phenomenal. It was just like it's just a kid, you know. Like I think where movies and shows make the mistakes is they give these kids these long. Have you seen the movies where these they say something so like metaphorical and empowering? It's just like kids don't say that.
Yeah, sometimes, there's a big issue within Hollywood where, for some reason, they have a hard time portraying kids as kids, you know?
And I think that is exactly like there was one scene where like they're in the hospital and or a doctor's office and it was because David has some kind of like issue, right? He has some kind of I forget if it's
He had a
something
little, like, he had a hole in his heart.
that's right. But like while the parents are having this really serious like conversation to the side, on the other side these kids are like playing tag and they're actually like playing a game and you can hear them, and it's little
Mhm.
things like that that add a lot of realism to a movie because usually in other movies you see like the kids just like sitting and like mommy and daddy don't fight, like kids don't do that. So I think A24 has a knack um, for finding really good child actors and letting them be kids. Again, I really love the mom's role. I think all the actors did a great job in their subtlety. Like you said, like
Mhm.
we could kind of tell what they're feeling without them having to be like, this is a bad situation. Grandma was
Yeah.
phenomenal, the cutest, the best. So all around, I think every actor did just a great job. I was most impressed with the kids. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think also I think I was more impressed with the kids than I would say the adult roles, just because the kids really sold their performances. And I say that knowing that, there's such a huge difference between working with adult actors and working with child actors.
Yeah.
Especially when you're telling a child to say something but still act like a kid. And I think that's why like we see a lot of movies where they try to make these kids like grown-ups because that's what they think acting is. Meanwhile, being able to learn how to tell a child to act, but to still be themselves is pretty great. Like the first thing that comes to mind is like, Haley Joel Osment as a kid, when he's in like Sixth Sense and stuff like that. He doesn't act like a kid. He acts like a grown adult in these movies, even as a child, even when he's like an AI going, I'm David, and things like that, you're
Hmm.
still getting like an adult performance from a child. And I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm just saying that it's, you would think it would be so much easier to be like, no, like I want a kid performance from a kid, but it's very hard because when you tell a kid to be a kid, they're going to do that and they're going to make mistakes and they're going to fumble and then they're going to not, give what the director, wants. I don't know if maybe there was a lot of improvisation with the child or maybe a lot of, I would really love to ask Lee Isaac Chung like how he works with kids because really like the best performance is done by Alan Kim who plays David, the young
Yeah.
boy. And don't get me wrong, Stephen Yin, Gary Han, and Noel Cho, um, and even like the woman who plays the mother, Yu Jung Yoon, I believe it's called. Her name is. They all did great jobs, but to be
Hmm.
able to get realistic performance from kids is incredible. Stephen Yin, I will say I wanted a little bit more from him, and I don't think it was his fault. I think I wanted more emotion from his character,
Okay.
especially in the fire scene. I feel like we could have seen a little bit more. I
That's fair.
I like I just feel like especially with the fire scene, especially with something like that devastating, to that whole plot line is to the family. I do feel like we could have seen a little bit more from him.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that. I could see that for
And
sure.
more from that character. Like I really would have loved like I think what would have been like probably like the nomination vote, for him would be, and not saying that he didn't deserve it regardless, but I think maybe him like staring off into the fire and just, have that state of disbelief, that state of like, seeing literally everything you worked so hard for burn and seeing that reflect within him. I think that could have been like the golden ticket shot of the movie. Although that really isn't the main center of the focus of the film, so maybe that's
Yeah.
why it wasn't played up. But that's just me really going nitpicky into the movie.
Right. No, yeah, yeah. But you have a point there.
And like because I know because I he's a great actor, like
He is.
Walking Dead. I mean, hello, like no everyone knows, like you don't have to watch Walking Dead to know who Glenn from The Walking Dead is. And
Yeah.
that's because like that was phenomenal writing with a phenomenal actor. And he's so like recognizable for that role. And he was so great, on that show. I just wanted a little bit more, just a wee bit more. Um, I want to ask you about the setting of the film. What did you think of the inclusion of like not only like the setting of Arkansas, but kind of this, I want to say this envelope of religion that is kind of brought into the movie by these side characters, especially since the way that they connect with people of the town is through the church. What did you think of that?
So I like the idea of, you know, so when they went to church, they thought like, okay, let's, try to connect with people. And what this scene really emulates is like how different they are. Even in such a common, what's supposed to be common ground, um, is really not, because when there's a scene where they're stand up, and even before that everybody is just staring because they're the only Korean family in the church. And it's not necessarily like, I like that the scene it wasn't necessarily like a racist scene, but it's that
Yeah,
feeling of
people
like,
weren't angry. People
no,
weren't
no.
angry that they were
I
there.
think it was just more of a fascination, but I like the scene because you feel how uncomfortable this family feels. Like it's like going into, a whole new place where nobody looks like you. Like nobody looks like you and everybody is just staring at you and it's just like, it is overwhelming. And you get the sense in that scene and it's very well done. I really like how they did that because they could have easily turned that into, what are you doing in my town? But it's not always like that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the time it's just I feel different than everybody here and everybody can see it. Everybody's staring at me and I don't feel like I belong. So I really
And
like that.
even, like, turning the one scene where, the son David is talking to a no, it's the daughter talking to a young girl, and it starts off really brash and harsh because she's like, "Oh, I think I know, Chinese, whatever," and it goes into the very stereotypic, air quote, Chinese phrases, blah, 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 all that
Mm.
stereotypic BS. But what I like was that they did turn it into something more than just a stereotypic. Holy crap, that scared
That
me.
scared me. I was like,
Oh my god, I didn't realize that was my Apple Watch. I accidentally held my wrist up and it turned it on. Sorry about that. That was
no, it's
Siri.
okay.
But sorry about that. But yeah, so I really liked how they turned that scene, which at first started like, and then all of a sudden the girl's like, actually, wait, yeah, that is a word. That means this, and then they formed a conversation about it, and and I think that's just a really great segue to get away from like those stereotypes, especially being involved in movies. Whether
Yeah.
it's jokes or showing it as a scene, just kind of showing it from more of a progressive perspective, I think was a really great choice on Lee Isaac Chung's part.
Yeah. Totally agree.
I really like this is one of those movies where it's there's almost like so much to talk about but not a lot to talk about. It's just overall a really really good movie. In terms of directing, I think it was good. I think directing kind of played it a little safe, but also I do understand with a movie like this, if you play up the directing, you try to do art house, pull some David Lynch angles, whatever you want.
Yeah.
I think it would take away from the center
Yeah.
of the theme, which is this family. Is there anything else on this movie that you want to comment or talk about before we dive into rating it?
No, I think I like said everything. I just really like how the movie my main point is just it's a story within a story and I always like when films do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it.
So with that being said, what would you rate Minari?
I'd give it and I'm gonna get specific like you do. So I'm gonna give it an 8.7 out of 10. Because arguably, this is not how I feel, but arguably
Mhm.
I could see someone saying, well, the movie doesn't really go anywhere. And I
Mhm.
feel like that is somewhat valid. It's just kind of a look into these people's life. It's not necessarily there's not necessarily a point
There's
A,
no
point B, point C.
major arc. Yeah, there's no
Yeah,
major arc to this movie. There's no grand finale. There's no hero's
exactly.
journey really.
Yeah. And other than that, the rewatchability for me is probably not too high. No particular reason. It's just not something I'd watch too often. And I feel like anybody would feel like that. Like you're not going to sit down and be like, I'm in the mood for some Minari. No, I really feel like it's maybe like a twice a year, once a year thing. What do you rate it?
Yeah. I think I'm gonna have to go a little bit lower just because I did come to this like through a conversation with my boyfriend this past weekend. I did realize how like kind of like my biggest ideology about movies, and that sounds so pretentious to say, but I kind of realize the movies that I think are the best, they can be a poorly made movie. They can be an excellent movie. But I think the biggest caveat to me for a movie is memorability. and being able for it to be memorable.
Very
Because
good
like
point.
movies can have a rewatchability, but let me tell you this, the best movies I've ever seen, or even like not even the best movies I've ever seen, the movies that I have the best memories of, whether it's me going, what the heck was that? Or, going like, that was amazing. If I can watch that movie one time and still recollect a scene, a feeling, an emotion, the entire
Mhm.
movie, whatever it may be. So, because of me coming to that conclusion, from here on out, I am going to adjust my scale to include not only a rewatchability factor, but a memorable factor. And because of that, I would give this movie like a 7.7 because I think it's
Wow. So
great.
it's
I
gonna
Yeah,
okay.
well, because I'm thinking about this because yeah, like if there's a movie that I can rewatch over and over again, that's great. But if there's a movie that, like, for example, this is a movie that I'm gonna watch now, I probably won't touch for a few years, and it'll more so be a rediscovery, which isn't a bad thing. But it's gonna be a rediscovery for me. It's gonna be oh, like, I remember this movie. It's been so long. It's gonna be a rediscovery. It's not gonna be oh my god, I remember how this made me feel. Point A to B, whatever it may be. So including that, that's why I think it's great. I totally
Yeah,
recommend
yeah.
watching it, but that's why I'm gonna give it a 7.7.
I actually I see your point there, and I do agree with this movie. One of the things that it doesn't have that the Florida Project and even the Farewell have is what you're saying. Like I could pick out a scene from the Florida Project right now that affected me.
Yeah.
The scene from the Farewell that made me laugh or affected me. With this movie, I kind of agree with you because it's so subtle. There's maybe not a lot I could pick out besides David and maybe Grandma.
Yeah.
And even that, like you were saying, isn't enough. So I think you hit it on the nose there.
Yeah, and that does not mean that this movie is bad. Like, just
No,
because
no,
it
no.
isn't as memorable as others, that doesn't make it bad. I think it's gonna be, like I said, one of those films that I will go back within the next 5 years and be like, oh yeah, that was such a that was a good movie. I remember vaguely of it, but and I'll enjoy that rediscovery. But in terms of like for example, even like you can recall, like, for example, even though it might not be like, I remember at one point in the beginning, everyone was like, oh my God, it's my new favorite movie. And it would be either like Avatar or Inception. And obviously, people's change, like, their opinions changes about movies like that. Like Avatar, I think the popularity of Avatar got less and less as we kind of realized how much of a, a hole James Cameron is. And even like the popularity of Inception has just kind of died down over the years, even amongst Nolan's other movies, but those are still always movies that you're going to be able to go, holy crap, remember that scene? Remember
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Either the blue tails connecting, or, just, wondering if Leo's good, if this was a dream or wasn't a dream. So that's how I'm going to be like adjusting my scale to. I'm not going to go back and change how I feel about, like, that's I'm solid. I'm set in stone with previous films. But now with this new thought, yeah, I think I'm gonna have a little change into the way I rate movies due to this.
That's fair. I feel like that's
Hmm.
fair.
Like, because I was thinking about it, like looking through all the movies that we watched last year of 2020 when we started Purple Noon. All the movies that were in our favorites were the most memorable. And that's
Yeah.
why we had things from like, you know, The Woman Next Door, A Shocking Romance, to Tusk. They're memorable movies. They're things where you're like, oh my God, remember that scene. So I really think that yeah, it's a great movie. Oh, well, look at that. 7.7 is the rating of it on IMDb.
Look at you,
Got a
spot
little
on.
consumer mind. But I definitely do recommend this movie. Ooh, I have an idea of another question I would like to start asking you
Okay.
after doing the reviews. You ready
Sure.
for it?
Yeah, let's do
Would
it.
you buy this movie on DVD?
Oh, okay. That's a fantastic question.
And I think
Because
that's because that does have an effect. That gives like a vibe, you know?
okay, I only buy DVDs if I know I'm going to watch the DVD more than once a year. That is my rule because DVD collecting is very expensive. Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not. And that's not because I don't like it. It's just I don't think this is a more than once a year movie for me. Or even if I would want to watch it more than once a year, it's probably a no. Um, so it would have to be one of those things for me is if it was on Amazon, like if Prime Video or Netflix or Hulu, I might see it again. But if I had the DVD, I think it would kind of sit there. So that's a very good question. I wouldn't.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I feel the same way. Like I would buy it if it was on sale, maybe, but it would have to be like a few years from now when I'm like, oh, I remember this movie. Like I said, that kind of like, rediscovering type of movie for me. But yeah, I feel like that's another gauge because people can be like, oh my God, I love this movie, but it's like, but would you spend the 30 for the Blu-ray? Because you just spent 20 on the DVD, you just spent 20 on your movie ticket. I feel like really kind of like solidifies to people who are listening like, oh, okay, now I have to get this movie, or how now I have to see it, especially since you and I are very particular when it comes to owning DVDs. I mean, if it's on Criterion, screw it, I'll buy it.
Oh,
Like,
I will
because I'm
too.
a
I'm a
collector
sucker for that.
in that way, but like non-Criterion, like even if this like non-Criterion, I wouldn't buy it.
You know what Criterion I'm still protesting that I'm not going to buy just to be stubborn?
Solo.
That, yeah, but for for moral reasons. The one I was thinking of is a Marriage Story. I don't want it.
Oh yeah, no,
I
no.
protest that.
Yeah, no. Mini review of a Marriage Story, no bueno. Try something else.
Dude, you ever see oh, another thing, speaking of marriage, they're redoing scenes from a marriage.
I heard. Did it go to Noah Baumbachman or whatever his name is?
I think it might have. I don't take my word for it. I feel like I saw that name thrown around, but I don't know for
Ugh.
sure.
Well, that's
I
the dude who
know.
did A Marriage Story.
Oh, well then that's not going to be good. I know the guy from Star Wars,
Okay, I like him. Let's see the. Hold on, let me
and
see.
then I
I'm
think
getting
it's
the.
Jessica Chastain, which
Yeah, I want to see the. First of all, they're making it into a TV show. Don't know how I feel about that.
well
Okay,
the
no,
the
it's by
original
a
one was a
newbie.
TV show, was a miniseries.
I thought it was a movie. Weird.
Now it's like put into one big long thing. I don't know how she might surprise me. She's a very good actress. If you haven't seen it, the character of the wife, especially in the beginning, is I don't like to say because I understand the position she's in, but she's almost like uh, begging. I don't want to spoil anything, but she's like kind of begging at one point, and she's kind of weak. And I see Jessica Chastain as like this
Ah,
strong female character, so I'm kind of interested in see how she would play that off if they're gonna do it like the original at least.
gotcha. You know, like, uh, you. Here's my thing. I think scenes from a marriage, just knowing that the movie is set, the original is set in 74, I'm a little bit disappointed that they set it in 74 again. Like, I feel like this was the type of thing where it's like, all right, instead of regurgitating already what a director did, you can take it and you can add a little pizzazz to it and make it modern with more modern day problems. Because let's be honest, the concept of infidelity, and things like that, very different today. Like, obviously, some things are still the same, but with the use of technology and, different forms of relationships that are out now, I feel like they should have adapted and made it more of a modern setting.
Absolutely. I think they could have kept where the story was going, but make it more accessible. And like you said, like 2020, there's a whole lot of ways to cheat and like have some problems in your marriage. So, yeah, if they're just gonna, I really hope they don't copy and paste because that would just be a waste of everybody's time. I don't need to see the same thing ever again with different actors, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Like, if you want me to, like, rediscover an old classic, give a little new twist on it so I can be like, "I wanna see where its roots are from." Not, "I wanna see the same movie again, but done in a lower quality," you know? Or, like, be like, with actors who are dead. Like, it's just, like, I wouldn't want, it's like the same thing with, like, a movie like Godfather. You know, people talk about, "Oh, are you gonna remake Godfather?" No one's gonna touch Godfather, or
But
at
why
least
would
for
you
at least
touch
another few years.
something? No, I'm against touching things that are already good. I think if a movie is good, don't touch it. Why would you ever touch
Yeah,
Godfather or
or
anything?
unless you can take a good movie and apply modern elements to it to slightly transform, like what I think they should do with something like Scenes from a Marriage with. I think that would be fantastic. Or like even like I wish they went through like old Hollywood like bombs that like just didn't go well and just kind of picked up the pieces from there, adaptation to make, you know, like for example, that one movie that I told you that I want to remake is oh the not a separation. It's the one with Jack Nicholson
Yeah,
and Maria
yeah, with
Schneider.
I don't know, the passenger,
The
right?
Passenger, thank you. Like something like that. It didn't do so well. It kind of flopped due to some plots, but it had good backbones. Build off of good backbones and kind of build something new from it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? Like and it's so like that is something where people be like, "Oh, well, it doesn't work." It works today for music. It works today for most arts, you know? You can definitely apply it and get something new.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just think that would be a better use of everybody's time too.
Yeah, and it's like I don't need to see like another Point Break when the first two didn't do so great. Like, you know, like they keep going back and they keep wanting to extend and recreate, but it's like you got to build off of, you know?
Yeah, I like I said, I just really hope that this isn't a copy and paste. Because if you're saying it's
Mhm.
set in 1974, I'm really not
Yep.
trying to. Scenes from a Marriage is a very long miniseries, movie, however you watch it. It's very long, so I don't want to watch that again, just with different people.
Yeah, and
That's
I'm kind of
okay.
just assuming because it says a TD adaptation of the 73 feature, and just kind of looking at the clothes and the settings, I'm getting very 70s vibe from it. So, unless it's like, you know, visually a homage to it, but if they really do with just like sticking it with the 70s and stuff like that. Like for example, I'm the day that someone goes, "Hey, we're remaking Decalogue," I'm throwing fist. I don't care if I have to go to like whatever European country and start throwing fists because if they're like, "Oh, we're going to do a full thing." I love Decalogue. And if they're like, "Oh, we're going to like totally like redo it but like keep it in the same era." Like, dude, Decalogue episode 1 that's centered around technology. Are you kidding me? Up the ante, make it new. You know, the stakes are higher.
That would actually be
Like,
a really good movie to remake. Really
yeah,
good
like
anything to
it just
remake.
all those things, and like even like something like you know from like they better not touch the Three Colors trilogy because they
Oh
better not
my
touch that because that's something
gosh.
that where it already is on its own as timeless. Why do you have to adapt it?
That's no, nobody touched that. I feel like it would just be worse. Imagine trying to put that timeline right now. No, 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 no.
Yeah, no.
That'd be a mess.
Yeah, it would be like, you know, also, like, we just did a review of 47 Ronin. You know, people, like, sometimes even modernizing it doesn't work because even with something like 47 Ronin, they did it the wrong way. They didn't care about the plot. They didn't care about the backbone. They were like, yeah, let's take Keanu
He's
and throw him in
popular.
here.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think some white people don't know why that was included, but I mean, hey, like you made a bomb, like it's whatever, but I really hope with something like that we can just kind of get to the point, stop doing remakes and just kind of bring like, you know, Phoenix from ashes of movies that have like been bad.
Yeah, that should be what we're doing.
Hmm.
That should be what we're doing with our time lately.
For
Especially
sure.
now,
Or
like with the movie industry, we're already like recycling the same ideas 100 times. So why not just remake, like you were saying, some of the things from maybe that didn't do so well in the 50s, some things that can be revamped. We don't need another. What's popular now? What's popular now that we can't stand? We always talk about it.
Bro, I don't need them within like 3 years to make like 8 seasons of Bridgerton.
Stop.
It's like, do you mean Pride and Prejudice number 4? Do you mean Atonement number 5? Do you mean Notting Hill number 11? Like, I don't need those types of movies. Even like some genres that they just keep going back to. Like, yeah, like something like Downton Abbey that kind of hits, something of that sort. Yeah,
That's
it's new, it's
fine.
fresh. But like, I just don't like Bridgerton and like concepts like that where it's like, oh, you mean Emma, like, and all the, like, you're just bringing back like this entire genre and you're trying to hit all these different points and stuff like that, and it's just the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, we're good. We're good.
We're
Even
good
with,
with that stuff.
yeah.
Is there any so let me, and I've asked you this before, but I do want to ask you again.
Mm.
With just talking about remakes and stuff like that. If you had the opportunity to be responsible, like you had created control over a remake, what would you choose to remake?
Ooh, that's a fantastic question.
And I
It's
mean, like,
hard.
you choose everything, writing, directing, like you run the show.
It's really hard though because my favorite movies I would never want anybody to touch. My favorite movie is well, so the my favorite Sophia Loren movie is Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. I never want
Hmm.
anybody to touch it because I love Sophia Loren and Marcello. I don't want anybody to touch it. But
Yeah,
if I maybe had control over every single aspect, maybe we could work out a deal.
yeah.
But even that, like again, my favorite movies, Goodfellas. I never want anybody to touch that. I don't want
No,
anybody to touch
there's
it.
no need to touch that. No.
I'm trying to think. What other movies do I talk about all the time? I really am a big Princess Bride fan. I wouldn't want anybody to touch that either.
Gotcha. You know what I
There's a
thought your
charm
answer
to
would
it.
have been?
What?
For some reason, I felt like you would have gone for an Audrey Hepburn film. For some reason, when I think if Savanna could, you know, kind of change it, or like, do a movie on her own, have creative control and stuff, my brain instantly goes to Breakfast at Tiffany's for some reason.
I could see it, but there's already I think with movies like Breakfast at Tiffany's, I think with very niche like 80s movies, certain 60s movies, there's already a charm to it that I don't think we can replicate anymore.
Gotcha.
There's a charm even with like for example, we talked about The Godfather. There's already a charm there that we can't replicate, and
Hmm.
I feel like that with a lot of older movies. Breakfast at Tiffany's took place in the 60s. It's a very, very 60s movie. I don't think we could
Yeah.
replicate that again.
I
However,
mean, we could delete the Mickey Rooney scenes, but
that's yeah, that would actually be a good idea. But I think we can replicate Valley of the Dolls
hmm
simply because we can kind of change it up. We can do like, oh, modern Valley of the Dolls with something like Breakfast at Tiffany's. She's like a socialite slash prostitute. I don't think we can modernize that for today. I love that movie, but I kind of sat there and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what the 2020 maybe
yeah,
OnlyFans doesn't
aristocrat
work.
and prostitute really doesn't,
It doesn't
coincide with each
exist
other
anymore,
anymore.
unfortunately. So there are just certain things I think did well back then that we can't really modernize anymore.
I will say, because I was watching a little bit with this with Zach, and I realized if a big budget company, or like, like, I don't know, like A24, even though that's more indie, but if like a production company was like, hey, what would you do to make us money? I would do a more modern remake of the version, I feel like I could hit everything. You can get the full original vibe from it that it gave off. You can still give the homage to the original plot, but still bring in a bunch of new people, bring in a whole new outlook on it. And that would be, it's a mad, 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 mad world.
That's a great choice. That is a good
Because you can
choice.
completely, especially when you give like whatever comedians, famous actors, actresses, when you give them the creative control, you then create something entirely new. But even like, for that type of movie, the stunts that it had back then, I was reading a great trivia where apparently at the time in the US, there was only 100 stunt workers. 80 of them were used for that movie. And like with advancements in, technology and stunts and things like that, I feel like a movie like that could be not only a huge like blockbuster, but if you get the right medley of comedians, musicians, actors, actresses, directors, whoever, pop culture icons, I
Hmm.
feel like you could really, old and new, I feel like you could really like, that's the type of movie that people should really be focusing on remaking. Even if that's a movie where every 20 years you're plugging and chugging, you're bringing in different people and that the movie is centered on.
Yeah,
The movie is a movie like that is centered on the big names and the type of actors that are involved. I feel like a movie like that is, if we're going to keep regurgitating out the same stuff, you can do something like that and get a different movie every single time.
that's a great pick. Yeah.
So, Paramount, if you're listening, let me do it. I got it from here. I like this movie a lot. I got it, boo. Just give me the keys and I'll drive us, to the coast.
You
What
know
phrase is
what's
that?
drive
What
us
is
to the
that?
coast?
I'll drive us to the coast.
Last thing I'm gonna say, you know what's crazy though? So
What?
in that movie, there's like a lot of famous people from that time,
Mm-hmm.
especially people that young people knew. Do you know who would be in a movie like that if we centered around like who 16-year-olds knew now? Like who 16, 18? It'd all be like
Oh my
TikTok
God. I
people.
do not need to see a bunch of movie with like TikTok stars and things like that?
It's insane because I was just thinking about like how like these TikTokers are getting like shows and movie deals, and it's because like, and I was like, that's so dumb, like oh they do 2-second videos, but it's because like they are like the most. If you ask a 16-year-old like who's their favorite celebrity, they're gonna say like I don't even know Charlie
Charlie
D'Amelio.
D'Amelio or someone like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And obviously,
crazy.
like for me, I'm gonna be like, no, because a movie like that wouldn't be meant for 16-year-olds to act in, or at least majority. For a movie like It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World, I'm instantly thinking comedians like Sebastian Maniscalco,
Yeah.
comedians like Kevin Hart, Miranda Hart, just getting a medley of people from all over, you know, the world who are just people, people that will make you laugh. Bill Murray, holy crap. Could you imagine Bill Murray, how funny he would be in this movie? Just get a bunch. Like, hold on, hold the phone. $1 billion idea here. Look, I'm willing, Paramount, to sell this idea, but get a piece of the income to have someone like Wes Anderson make a movie like this.
Ooh, good pick. Good pick.
I think that would be good. But like even like just bringing through like more popular actors, then get some indie actors, and then just sprinkle out like a bunch of more like within the past 15 years some pop culture like great references and things like that. I think that's kind of like the secret formula, like the really a hidden secret formula for just how to make good blockbusters. Not movies like Movie 48 where you have everyone and no one knows what the plot is, but doing something like this, taking it small and building up on what the actors can give.
Totally agree.
Hmm. But you know who else could probably do it now that I'm thinking about it? Dare
Who?
I say? Kevin Smith?
He has potential.
He has potential.
That's a
I
good
will talk
pick.
to him about this soon. I will bring this
Tell
idea
him he
up.
needs a
And
new
then,
project. He needs a new project.
dang, could you imagine I tell him this and then next year they start production and I don't make a dime? No, that's not what it's about. But,
Oh, okay.
but, it is what it is. But I think that's a good place to hit it. I mean, it's almost 10 p.m. our time, so I think we're good. Um, Remember, if you are listening to this on YouTube, hit subscribe. It don't cost you nothing. You don't need to get the notifications. Just subscribe. Check out all of our links below. We now have a link tree that's listed on our, Twitter, Instagrams, all things like that, where you can find literally everything that we do and all the good stuff with Purple Noon and on our own. Be sure to check that out. And stay tuned, because within the next few months, we're going to have some really cool guests featured back, some new faces, some old faces. So definitely keep in touch with that. Well, really old voices and new voices, because, podcast. And this is episode 58. No, 48. I will say, keep an eye out for episode 50. It's going to
It's
be a
gonna
little
be a
special.
special. Yeah, it's gonna
Going
be
to be a little
special.
special. So, with that being said, the next time you hear us, we are going to be discussing the movie Nomadland.
Yep, yep, yep. We got
And
some good
without,
ones.
yep, and without further ado, peace out.
Bye.